One of the lasting legacies of World War II is the amount of soldiers' personal artifacts that can still be found on battlefields or in museums around the world.
As a military historian, I know that every war artifact has a story to tell, especially items with a name or a number etched on it. Then, by accessing military files and searching Ancestry's family history records, we can actually connect the lost artifacts with a particular soldier, as well as the family of that soldier.
In our quest to find lost artifacts, we traveled to Italy and explored the battlefields of the Leary Valley.
Brutal fighting occurred here early in 1944, with the Allies tackling a series of heavily defended German lines high up in the mountains, blocking all the roads that led to Rome. The rugged, mountainous terrain made combat even harder for those soldiers fighting in this part of Italy.
And it made it difficult even for us.
We constantly battled the Leary Valley terrain and even dug up artifacts in very treacherous areas.
It's high explosive on the inside. You'd actually launch it from a rifle.
We were joined in Italy by Craig Mitchell, a collector and an amateur battlefield archaeologist.
You're saying that the pin is out?
Yes. Whoever threw this could only have been about sort of 20 yards away.
We carefully worked our way north, up the Leary Valley, until we came to the Hitler Line.
The Hitler Line was the last formidable German defensive position before Rome. Canadian and Polish forces managed to break through it in late May of 1944, which then cleared the way for the Allies to enter the Eternal City.
We headed to the Ceprano area, where we had a meeting with a local collector who supposedly had a number of items he found on the Hitler Line.
Oh, buongiorno, you must be Alessandro. I'm David.
As we entered Alessandro's home, he took us to a small room full of war artifacts.
Did you find all this here in the area?
Tutto qui in zona.
So is there anything with maybe some sort of identification marking? Oh, here we go. Look at this, Whitford. FE, it looks like. And then PPCLI, Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry. Oh, this is fantastic. This is exactly what we were looking for. Where did you find this? Around here in the battlefield?
Nelle zone all'incirca dove abbiamo visto prima.
Of course, we immediately asked Alessandro to take us to the spot where he found it. As we drove, I checked the Commonwealth War Graves Commission website.
His name's not there. That means he survived the war. He was not killed.
Whoever F.E. Whitford was, somehow he became separated from the bracelet as the Canadian Army came through this area. The question is, why?
We arrived at the edge of a forest and began following Alessandro along a path.
As we walked, I kept my eyes out for any signs of trenches or foxholes, but this area looked pretty serene.
Qui?
Right here.
Il bracciale.
Did you find anything else with it?
Forbici da chirurgo, siringhe, varie di bendaggi, tutto qui, siringhe.
He found evidence of what seemed to be some sort of hospital or medical facility.
Questo era probabilmente un campo dove convergevano tutte le truppe prima dell'avanzata.
This bracelet is becoming more and more mysterious.
Our first challenge was finding out who F.E. Whitford was.
By using Ancestry's vast collection of family history records, we came across a key piece of evidence, a newspaper listing from June 1944 that was entitled the 463rd Casualty List. This was issued by the Canadian Army.
Down the page, we found a wounded soldier by the name of Frank Earl Whitford and his number, L105251, the exact number on the ID bracelet.
This was the information we needed, but not all the pieces seemed to fit. The bracelet clearly says PPCLI, the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry, which is a storied Alberta regiment, yet the newspaper listed him as being wounded as part of a Saskatchewan regiment.
Then on Ancestry, we found Frank Whitford's obituary.
In it was a clue that only confused the story even more. It stated he went overseas and fought with the Westminster Regiment out of British Columbia. Luckily, the obituary also gave us the names of his immediate family. To solve the mystery of the bracelet, we had to bring the family over to Italy.
They arrived 4 strong, including Frank's wife, Margaret, and children Jim, Sharon, and Kathy.
We first want to take them to an area south of the Hitler Line, where we believe Frank was wounded.
On the way, Kathy tells us about living with her father and a very different kind of battle scar.
I can remember many nights being woken up by my dad just screaming and screaming, and my mom trying to console him, and we didn't understand, and it was just horrible seeing my dad like that.
Frank's trauma affected the whole family.
For him, it was just so, it's hard for me to explain, really.
Just really traumatic.
Yeah. He'd waken in the night and he'd just be in a panic. I'd have to try and calm him down. It was very, very hard on him.
Once we discovered that Frank fought with the Westminsters, we found their war diary from April 25, 1944. In it was information the family needed to know.
At the end of April, on the 25th, there's a notation about 2 men who were wounded by shell fire right where we're standing right now. We're pretty confident that one of them was your father.
Your father was wounded probably within 100 feet of this spot.
Unreal.
It was time to take the Whitford family to see Alessandro.
This is members of the Whitford family.
Alessandro.
Nice to meet you, Alessandro.
This is the reason why we brought you here. Because Alessandro has something of Frank's. What he found on the battlefield.
Oh, Mom, it's his tag. Look what it says. Well, I never thought there'd ever be anything like this. No.
But there's one more mystery to solve.
In the middle has the regiment PPCLI, and we're trying to see if you had any information, because all we know is that he fought here with the Westminsters.
It was then that the biggest surprise occurred. Jim Whitford pulled out a photo album and scrapbook that he brought all the way from Canada.
This is a picture of my dad when he just entered into the service.
As we leaf through the album, there was one incredible piece of evidence which they had overlooked.
There we go.
Guys, here's the evidence.
Oh, that's what we needed.
So Frank joined the Princess Pats in 1943, then transferred to the Westminster Regiment before going overseas. For some unknown reason, he never told Margaret or the kids.
Then I noticed something else that really took this to a completely different level.
As I was going through, I noticed this. Taken on strength, 16 Canadian Special Employment Company from 2nd Canadian Exhaustion Center, 13th of September 44. So he was attached to this particular exhaustion unit, which was rather experimental. They were dealing with people who had suffered massive traumas in battle, which could explain what they were doing down there in the valley.
Now it all makes sense. After his wounding, Frank Whitford suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder. He lost his bracelet when he was being treated in the camp near Alessandro's house. Sadly, like so many other soldiers, he carried the scars of battle for the rest of his life.
A ridare questo oggetto personale ai familiari, alla moglie e ai figli, perché è la cosa più bella che potete avere.
Thank you so much.
Now, after so many years, Frank Whitford's ID bracelet is going home. It's been 75 years since men and women like Frank Whitford served in this war.
Many of their stories, like this one, still remain untold.
To honor our ancestors, we must discover their stories
And celebrate their grit, their tenacity, and above all, their humanity.